Hello and welcome to a new episode of High Tech Low Code Podcast. For this episode, we have as our co-host, Gary Williams. Gary, how are you doing today?
Hi, Mario. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. So who have you got lined up for us to talk to today?
Today, we're going to talk about low code, IoT, and other inventions. And to help us with that subject, we have the company of Hugo Lourenço, R&D Principal Software Engineer at OutSystems. Hugo is a tinkerer, somewhat of an inventor, and has been with OutSystems for more than 15 years, where he has helped design and develop many of the features for the OutSystems platform. Hugo, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
All good. I'm very good. Thank you very much. So this is great. Thank you. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a chat with you. I would like to start by asking if you could give the listeners a little intro about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Hugo Lourenço. I've been in the computer engineering industry for quite some time already. So 15 years in OutSystems, but OutSystems is of course not my first job. I graduated 23 years ago almost.
Whoa.
When I think about it, it's a very long time. It's half my life already, so it's a very, very long time. But I've been always on this area for quite some time. So my first computer was ZX Spectrum, and from there.
Nice. Good memories, I bet.
Very, very early on that this was what I wanted to do with. Yeah, but ZX was a very interesting computer, and actually spent most of my time programming it rather than playing with it. I thought it was much more interesting to do stuff than to just be playing.
Produce the content instead of you. That's great.
Yes.
So I can't wait to get started. I have so many questions. I'll do my best to give you time to answer. Let me know if I get too much off tracks. Let's start. How did you come up with the idea of putting 2,304 LEDs on your ceiling? Tell us everything.
Yeah, so it just happened with a water infiltration problem that I had in my ceiling. So I woke up one morning when a large chunk of my ceiling, which is how do we call it? It's dry board, so the water just accumulated over it, and then all of a sudden it collapsed and dropped to the floor. So I had that large hole in the ceiling, and I had already done some projects with LEDs, and I had already thought about changing my lighting in my living room, and at that time that seemed just the right time to get involved in that major project. So it was kind of instead of a shortcut, a large turnaround. So of course the easiest solution would be just to fix it and have my ceiling back. But I found that was the perfect excuse to invest in something much more interesting and challenging rather than just it. So it's a strange explanation, but that's what actually my reasoning at the time.
Oh, it was a silver lining, I guess. You saw the opportunity and said, okay, let's do it.
If life gives you lemon, this was just the right opportunity to try something different. Since I had to do something about the ceiling, why not?
Did you initially imagine it would be different? You know, the way it came out at the end and the initial idea for the project, did it change too much?
Well, it evolved a long time. It was at some point it was supposed to be much more colorful than it is now. Mm-hmm. So it's a gray-based. The panels are always all of them gray-based, so either white, black, or gray. Because during my prototyping phase, when I experimented with more colorful panels, they didn't turn out as interesting as I imagined them. There were some technical difficulties regarding connecting all of this together, but I think that major idea, when I started, I had not very concrete idea on how to do this. So there was a prototype phase in which I produced some much smaller models, of course, just to make sure how this would go. So it turned out Not much different in principle, in theory, from what I had imagined. So it's a large ceiling with a lot of LEDs, and that I can control in some interesting ways. But the way it went, it was not exactly as I expected or as I imagined.
So can we say there were some limitations on the initial project, like for the colors, the LED colors? Was it just because you didn't enjoy how it would turn out, or was there like...
Well, the problem was not with the colors, but with the board colors, not with the LED colors, but with the board colors. So this is not a continuous ceiling, so to speak. I have these boards made using MDF, so kind of. No, it's not exactly wood; it's wood fibers, and all these boards I had to cut holes, one for each LED. And if
the amount of work.
that part I outsourced. Making the panels and cutting all these holes, I outsourced that. So I looked for some wood companies that have computer automated systems for cutting panels.
Okay. And technology-wise, was there anything that held back the initial project? I mean, yes, you said it was an evolving project, as you went by.
The main problem that I had was a scale problem, not because of the number of LEDs, but because of the length of the wires used to transmit the signals. So I have this central microcontroller at the center of the ceiling. So the farther away you are from the microcontroller, the longer are the cables connecting it to the microcontroller. And so in my initial solution, I had some problems with transmitting those signals.
So do you have like repeaters along the way or something like that?
I had to investigate. I'm not using repeaters by themselves, but I'm using some technology that allows you to have longer cables. So it's not repeater based, but it's based on something that is used in industrial settings. I don't recall exactly the name of the protocol, but it's a standard protocol using, it's a kind of differential signal transmitting. So instead of having a single cable for transmitting a signal, you have two pairs of cables in which the signal is transmitted both in a positive and negative way. It's a bit difficult to explain.
That's okay. That's good. This is amazing.
I use standard solutions there. So initially, I didn't know that I would have to go that route, but after looking for solutions, and actually, one of the keywords that I used was looking for what do people use in industrial settings, which are very noisy. So there's a lot of interference.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's a good point. That's actually a good point. Yeah, there you go. That's great.
Yeah, and I didn't know that I would have to do that. So when I started, so the prototype was of course okay because the wires were of course short. But then when I started mounting the ceiling, and so the first panels were okay. By the time I got, I don't know, 2 or 3 meters away from the microcontroller, I started having those problems.
difficulties
challenges.
It's like I was just going to say, it's like all good projects, they all start off with this idea and you think it's going to work out, but it's just a journey, isn't it? And you hit with obstacles, it's overcoming those obstacles and the learning on the way. You've obviously got so far, and then you had to apply different technology, and it's great to see.
Yeah, even if you prepare as the best as you can, there will always be surprises. So in this case, it was the problem of scale, so having long wires, because during the prototyping phase, it was everything okay. It was. It's a problem that we have when you reach production. So in development, everything is okay. You have millions of users using the application in very unexpected ways. It was similar, but at an hardware level.
This is cool. And did this project lead to, in any way, to other IoT ideas?
Well, I'd say that this project appeared between different ideas. So this was, of course, not my IoT project. I had already done some experiments with LEDs and also some other different things. So I felt confident to advance to such a large project because I already had some experience. For instance, I started probably the usual way with an Arduino and some temperature sensors and the like, and then I started doing more complex stuff along the way. So I think that before starting this project, I already had lawn watering system based on Arduino.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So all those sensors around the house, the LEDs behind the sofas and so on. And then came this project, and after this project, I already had a couple smaller, much smaller ones than this.
Sounds like there's no stopping you. What was the first project that you did then? Was that the lawn watering system?
No, actually, I started with some LEDs, not in behind the sofa, but over my windows to act as a kind of mood lighting. So I think that was the first one, and then I moved to the lawn controlling system.
So that ignited your power for the IoT projects, and you've not stopped since.
Yeah, yeah.
So what else have you got? Have you got new ones on the go at the moment? Where are you up to with your progression through your internet?
Well, the last ones I've created. One was also a LED project, but it was a Christmas tree project. That actually it's not at the time. It's not a Christmas tree because I never dismount it, so it's always here present in my living room because it takes quite a bit of effort to put it together. And when it's not Christmas, I'm using it as a large clock, so I'm using it to show the time. And the other one, which was a much smaller project, was a chicken coop door controller.
Really?
Yeah.
So random, these projects, aren't they? You wake up one day and think, right, what madcap thing can I do today?
Yeah, but they're always related to some kind of automation or visual stuff, I'd say. So
yeah,
the visual ones involving LEDs every time. The other ones are automation related. So lawn controller, because I didn't want to buy a standard lawn controller because the cheapest ones are not sophisticated enough. For instance, you cannot control different. It's not easy for you to change the settings or to delay the watering because it has rained or connected to some sort of water sensor. And the more advanced ones, I found that it was just too expensive, and this was not a very complex project, so why not do it myself? So
I'm interested about the chicken coop one. What does that do?
It opens and closes the door not at predefined times, but it takes into account the sunrise and sunset.
Okay.
The door a bit before sunrise and a bit after sunset, so that I don't have to do it by myself. So it's the automating side of the IoT.
What I've got in mind is Wallace and Gromit. Have you seen the Wallace and Gromit films? This might go nowhere.
Yeah, Chicken Run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the madcap things that Wallace and Gromit make, I can imagine that's what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. In this case, it was a very simple project. So just something to open and close the door at those predefined times and nothing more.
Out of curiosity, how do you go about knowing when the sun rises or sun sets? Do you have like a sensor for light, or do you have an API that feeds the time?
There are libraries for that. And one thing that worth mentioning is that I think that one of the reasons why I've embraced so many different IoT projects here at my house is that because it's actually very, very easy to do them, because with the invention of Arduinos and things like that, what used to be an hardware project suddenly became a software project. So there's a bit of hardware for you to do, but usually that hardware is the interconnecting with the real world. It's not having to deal with transistors and resistors and capacitors and all the like, which I find a bit too difficult. But if you just have to write some code, there I feel completely at ease. So I've been doing that for so many years already that I find that very, very easy to do. And I think that was one of the reasons why I started doing all those projects, because you pick up an Arduino, you connect some wires, and then you spend most of your time coding instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with the connections and so on. So answering your question about the chicken coop, there are some libraries that, given the current date and your location, can calculate when will the sun rise and the sun set. So no need for sensors at all.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, actually.
Yeah, of course, if you add sensors, you could adapt it. If it's too cloudy, maybe the chicken could be there in some extra minutes, but no, I just open it at predefined, not predefined times, but times based on sunrise and sunset.
Okay.
Half an hour before and half an hour after, to give them time to get to the coop on the evening, and about half an hour before sunrise, it's already clear enough and sunny enough. There's enough light so that they can get to their business outside of.
Has there ever been a situation where one of the chickens was left outside or inside?
No. They're very, very organized. Yeah.
They're methodical.
Yeah.
Okay, about everything that you've built. So did you use, has a hardware standpoint, did you use Arduinos for everything, or did you use more advanced or different types of technology?
I started with Arduinos, but I think it was around the time that I created the ceiling project that I moved on to other kind of microcontrollers. They are kind of Arduino clones in the sense that can use the same development environment to program them. But they are much more interesting because they have built-in Wi-Fi, and some of them even have built-in Bluetooth. They are extremely cheap, so you can buy one of these for, I don't know, 3 or 4 euros or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa,
yeah.
that's quite a difference.
Yeah, and they are very powerful. So the one that I'm using for the ceiling is one of those microcontrollers. So 3 euros or something like that. And it has built-in Wi-Fi, which is great because I don't have to run extra wires to
reach the network, right?
Yeah. Even for the chicken coop, the same. So of course, chicken coop is in the garden, and I didn't want to have to
get out in the cold in the rain.
Yeah, it's much easier this way.
So moving on to the software side, then, you being from OutSystems, have you used low code for these projects at all?
Yes. For some of them, not all of them, I have some kind of user interface. For instance, for the lawn controller, I need to adjust the times, and if it's getting into the winter, for instance, I just want to disable the watering completely. And for that, I've created a simple mobile application using OutSystems technology, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm not using only OutSystems for this because I want to have a robust system. So inside my house, I also have a Raspberry Pi, which acts as a hub for all these microcontrollers. And the idea is that I can be completely autonomous. So I'm not depending at all on any outside system. And that's important for me. In part, for security reasons, in part because I don't want to be dependent on some system that might disappear in the future. Mm-hmm. I know that there are several cloud providers for IoT, but I wouldn't design a solution using only or relying only on them. So I want to have some kind of fallback. And probably the third reason is that since I live in the countryside, my internet connection is not the best possible one. And sometimes there are connection drops. So I would like to be unable to control my devices if for some reason the internet connection was down.
So you got physical switches in the house as well as
yes. For the ceiling, I still have the physical switches. I call them the mother factors. So I wouldn't. It would be strange to tell my parents when they come here to visit that they had to use a cell phone, for instance, to turn on the lights or something like that. So there's still the physical button, because I think it's a great UX for turning on a light.
Yeah.
It just works. So why make it more difficult? But then I use the smartphone for other stuff. Okay. For instance, not for the ceiling, but for the Christmas light, I use if I want to change the settings. So I'm showing some effect. I want to move on to the other one. I can use the smartphone for that. Or in the case of the lawn, I can use it to turn off the lawn and so on.
So you've got a master dashboard that connects to all of your little applications, or are there separate applications for each piece of gadget?
Well, I use the Raspberry as a hub. So I'm using some well-known IoT protocols for communicating, for the microcontrollers to communicate with the Raspberry. I'm using a protocol named MQTT, which is a protocol for short messages, for reliably sending short messages between devices. And that's the main protocol that I use inside my house. The dashboard itself is coded using OutSystems. So it's not a central dashboard, because I have different use cases. So I have different, not different applications, but at least different tabs inside an application. One for controlling the lawn watering system, another one for the chicken coop, another one from the Christmas tree, and so on. But the backbone is this simple protocol in QTT. So the devices just send and receive messages, and then the Raspberry Pi aggregates and does some processing with it. And then I use OutSystems mainly for the UI part of it, and also for some bookkeeping. For instance, I have some sensors. I use the OutSystems for keeping historical data on those sensors.
That's cool.
So I use each part to its fullest potential, I'd say. So OutSystems is great for creating mobile applications and web applications. And Raspberry Pi is great for connecting with the microcontrollers.
Out of pure curiosity, you mentioned the MQTT now. So how does OutSystems dip into a database where you have all the messages, or is there like a web service that you can use and receive those messages in OutSystems?
So MQTT is not a database, is not database based. is a publish subscribe protocol. So in my case, I have the Raspberry Pi is where I have the service running, where the MQTT service is running. So all the devices connect to it to subscribe and to publish messages. And also my application written using OutSystems also connects to the to the same server. I use two different methodologies to connect to the Raspberry Pi and the OutSystems part. So either using MQTT or using standard web services, or REST service.
Okay, I see. And then OutSystems just goes in.
It depends a bit on what I want to do. So MQTT is usually for publishers subscribing. So you want to be notified when something happens. If I just want to control, in that case, REST makes more sense.
That's okay. That was my gap in knowledge. I was like, okay, how can we get the info from the IoT device? But yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, one thing that is also concerning, and you've mentioned this as we were speaking. So a lot of people are often concerned with the security of these small devices. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think that they have good reasons to be concerned. Yes, it's if you have no kind of protection, you are completely subject to bad things happening to you. For instance, in my case, I could have someone turning on the lawn and waste a lot of water if I had no such protections. So I do think that security is important. I think that IoT vendors usually sacrifice security due to usability concerns. So there's an extra layer, but that also means an extra configuration step usually, and it's much easier to just let things open. So in my case, since all my solutions are do-it-yourself solutions, I do indeed have some of those concerns. Using the Raspberry Pi provides some security. It's running a very stable and known operating system, so with frequent updates and using some protocols. So all the connections are encrypted and are HTTPS based and so on.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's really good.
But at least the outside ones, of course. Inside the network, I can be a bit more relaxed. So the microcontrollers just need to talk with the Raspberry Pi. So I never contact them directly, and that means that I can use much lighter protocols. Usually, that's a problem with the using microcontrollers because they are not powerful enough or do not have enough memory for you to implement more secure protocols. But by using a hub, you can mitigate some of those problems. You really want to make sure that hub is adequately protected, so it's behind a firewall, and you are using secure protocols and so on. And then you can be a bit more relaxed about the connection inside your network.
Oh, yeah, that was more or less what I was imagining, that vendors would sacrifice a bit just to get the functionality out, because I usually think about this when I see the adverts for the IoT doorbells that have the camera. I kind of go like, that's connected to your internal Wi-Fi, and I imagine that the security is not the most bulletproof there. But yeah,
in my case, I am not using third-party devices, so that's a plus and a minus, of course. So for the kind of projects that I have done, following a do-it-yourself approach was, I think, it was the right choice in several ways. Because of the challenge, it's much more interesting, of course, to do your own stuff than buying already existing stuff, and it can be much more. You can be sure that you are exactly doing the things that you really need. It's difficult to find something that completely adapts to your needs.
Yeah, it's not tailored to the common denominator. It's for you.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I could even plug OutSystems here. That's one of the reasons why I think OutSystems is successful, is because it makes this kind of it fulfills this kind of need. So if you need something tailor-made, then you should use some technology that makes it easier to create, to address your customer needs.
Okay.
I could say the same thing about the IoT side of things. So using Arduinos or these microcontrollers that I'm using, it's in some way it's also a similar situation. So you are using these building blocks that make it much easier. They abstract away some of the problems that you would have if you had to make everything by yourself. So in certain way, they are. Arduino. We could argue that Arduino is kind of low code for electronics.
Okay, a way to start. I would say definitely. Okay, I don't know if this will be my last question, but let's say it's the last question. So, what's next for you? What is your ultimate dream project?
My ultimate dream project. I don't know. Currently, I think I'm kind of in a vacations mode regarding IoT. Because I have a lot of different interests. For instance, I like gardening, and this last year, probably during the pandemic, I've been spending more time in my garden than I usually do. So currently, I do not have any IoT project in mind, but I'm sure that will change in the future. So I apologize, it's not a great answer for you.
No. But it serves as a segue to my next question then. Yeah. If I wanted to start with IoT, what do you advise? Where should I go?
Yeah, I would advise you to look at Arduino and Raspberry Pi ecosystems. So are very low entry barriers. They have a very low entry barrier to this kind of stuff. There's a lot of information, a huge community. So if you want to start, I'd say that's the right point to start.
Okay, thank you. Gary, anything else from your side?
I was just going to say, this topic pricked my interest. It's not something I've been very close to in the past, but when I was reading your blog and the Arduino, I'd linked onto their website and ended up buying a starter kit for my 9-year-old son. So that will be coming soon. And at Christmas, we'll be wiring up the house. And I'm going to make a bigger, massive LED light ceiling situation or configuration to match your thing, I think. So I think my son will be wiring up the rest of the house. Doors will be opening at 3 a.m. and all random stuff will be happening.
Yeah, I said this is completely addictive. So by the time you start, it's difficult to stop.
Good stuff. Okay. I would say that with that, we wrap up this episode. Thank you very much, Hugo and Gary, for joining us and taking time from your schedule to participate in this podcast.
Yeah. Cheers, Mario. Cheers, Hugo.
Okay. Bye then.
And thank you for listening. And I hope you can join us on our next episode of High Tech Low Code Podcast, where we'll feature another guest and approach yet another topic of extreme importance to the tech world. See you soon.